Hello, hello.
Zishan, can you listen to me?
Assalamu alaikum, sir.
Do you listen me, Zishan? Bismillah Rahman Rahim. I am Raja Shakil, and on today we are going to learn about the pair annihilation. What is the topic? Pair annihilation. This is our topic. So what thing is this? This may be considered as the inverse process or reverse process of. This is a process which may be considered as the reverse process of pair production. So you can consider it to be the reverse process of the pair production. And on yesterday we had learned about the pair production. What was the pair production? That a single photon is going to be converted into one electron and one positron. And now in the pair production, pair annihilation, we will be studying that one electron and one positron are going to be converted into photon, but this is not exactly similar to the pair production, but it has slight difference as well. So actually, what is the definition of the pair annihilation? Let's see the definition. So definition is, what is this? That it is a process. It is a process in which an electron positron pair combine to produce two photons. So it is producing two photons instead of one photon. It is producing two photons. So what is practically happening, that when on yesterday we had learned that whenever we are having a single photon, for example, it is an X-ray or gamma ray photon. So this photon, when it is going near to a nucleus, it breaks into, it is converted into an electron and a positron. So this was studied in the previous lecture. Now, if we consider a chemical reaction, let us consider a chemical reaction. For example, here we are having H positive and OH negative. So it produces H2O. And its inverse process is this, that H2O, when we pass electricity through it or we are making electrolysis, then it is going to be converted into H positive and OH negative. So you can see here that exactly the same inverse process is being followed in both of these reactions. Simply the arrow direction is changed, or the process, both of the processes have been reversed with the same amounts, with the same quantities. There is no difference between both of these. But as far as the process which is the pair annihilation is concerned, this is not the exactly in a reverse process of the pair production. Let's see what is this thing, what I'm saying. So actually what is happening, that if you are talking of this process to be reversed, this process, if this is going to be reversed, then what will happen? It must happen that if we are saying of the reversal of this process, then there should be a reverse process in such a way that when these two things, means electron and positron, are combining with each other, they must make a single photon. So they must make a single photon. But practically it is not happening. Actually, they are making two photons, not a single photon. They are making two photons. So this thing is the violation of the classical rules and regulations, which we have already gone through. So this is the main matter which is creating confusion here. Anyhow, so actually what is happening, that whenever an electron and a positron are coming near to each other from opposite directions. For example, let us consider an electron which is coming from a certain direction, so let us consider that this is an electron and it is coming from left side, sorry, a positron, let us consider it. Positron, it is coming from left side, from left to right. This is actually positron. And there's an electron as well. The electron is coming from right side. Let us consider this to be an electron. An electron is coming from the right side. So this is electron. The previous was positron. So when they are combining with each other at a certain position, for example at this position, if they are combining with each other, they are going to have an interaction. And interaction in such a mode that actually their frequencies are waves. Their waves are going to be combined with each other. For example, that electron is having, let us consider that the energy of the electron capital E of E negative means electron, is equal to HF1, because you know that the energies are understood. We'll be talking of the formed photon as well. So we are having positron and electron which have been combined with each other. When they are doing the process of the annihilation, then what will happen, that two photons have been formed. Two photons have been formed. Let us consider the energy of the first photon. gamma 1, let's say. This is HF1. While the energy of the second photon, let's say to be gamma 2, is equal to HF2. Then actually they have been formed at this position where I had shown that at this position they have, since the electron and positron have combined, and now two photons have been formed, and these photons will be moving in opposite direction with certain wavelengths. So let us consider that one photon is moving toward the left side. It is moving toward the left side. It is going toward the left with the energy HF2, while the other photon is going toward the right with the energy HF1. Both photons are moving in opposite directions, with usually they are having these similar equal energies. So this is the main procedure for the pair annihilation. I hope you have got the understanding. Now we'll be moving towards the next topic. And what is that next topic? Next topic is the wave nature of particles. But before that, if you are having any questions about the pair annihilation, you may ask, please. Anybody having any question here? Anybody willing to ask anything? Nawaz, Zishan, Irfan Haidar, Salman Haidar, Tala Afzal.
Yes.
So, do you have any doubts here? Do you have any question in your mind? Okay, I assume that you are not having any question. Okay, so I will be proceeding toward the wave nature of particles. Wave nature of particles. What this thing is, that this was first studied by de Broglie. Usually it is called as de Broglie, but its pronunciation is Louis de Broglie. So this was studied by, this was proposed by Louis de Broglie. He was a French physicist. And this theory was presented in 1924. Actually, he tried to study about light and the particle natures of the other particles, electrons and so on. And he found something amazing. What he found? He found that every moving particle has a wave nature associated with it, which depends on the velocity of the particle. So every moving particle in this universe also has a wave nature. Although before this theory, we were considering that the particles are different things while waves are somehow different. That waves and particles may be mixed with each other, that particles may gain the waves or energies, but particles certainly they are different things as compared to the waves. But de Broglie proposed this thing that the particles, whenever they are moving with certain velocity, they are having the wave nature. That actually they are concerned with the wave nature, which depends on their speed. More generally, we say this is velocity. So, as far as we know that, so now we'll be moving towards mathematical working as well. So we are already aware to the Compton's experiments and Planck. So we had determined the momentum. Momentum is equal to, what is that? H by lambda, where H is Planck's constant. H is Planck's constant. While lambda is the wavelength. This was a general relation, already this was proposed. So lambda is equal to wavelength. Now we can write this equation into another form by using the cross multiplier and so on. That lambda is equal to h by p. That Planck constant divided by the linear momentum of the particle. Now we know that h by p is actually, the momentum is equal actually mv. So actually what has happened, that this lambda has become equal to h by mv. Lambda is equal to h by mv. What does it mean? That any massive particle is having the wave nature, because lambda means wavelength. So if we are having a massive particle with the mass small m and velocity v, then its wavelength will be, the wavelength associated with it will be equal to h by mv. So this is the de Broglie's hypothesis, and later it was considered to be the de Broglie's principle. At the previous time, no scientists were able to believe this theory, but later on it has been proved that the same thing happens. Okay, so now we have another relation which was proposed by Einstein. According to Einstein, he had proposed a relation for the mass change theory in the theory of relativity. What is that relation? M is equal to m naught whole divided by 1 minus v square by c square. So this was proposed by Einstein. So from here it is also actually, we are trying to explain that how this lambda has been produced. Practically, the energy is going, the mass is going to be converted into lambda. So here some bit confusion here, that Einstein is saying that the mass is increasing when somebody is moving with a certain velocity. This means that the mass increases when mass increases with velocity. So according to Einstein, mass is increasing. Mass increases with increase in velocity. While on the other hand, G. Broglie is saying that the wavelength is also related to the velocity, and it will be showing that the wavelength is inversely proportional to the velocity. Wavelength is inversely proportional to the velocity. When we are taking Planck's constant and mass to be constant, then the wavelength will be inversely proportional to the velocity. So this is an important fact. Okay, now so this is anyhow. Now if you have been given some specific data and you have been asked to calculate the wavelength of a particle, for example, we are having a certain mass. Numerical example this is. That if you have a certain mass of a certain particle, for example, or a combination of particles as well. Let us consider that you are having a certain amount of a cricket ball, a certain mass of a cricket ball. Usually the mass of the cricket ball, is usually quarter of a kilogram. Quarter of a kilogram means 0.25 kg. Now let us consider that it is moving at a certain speed of 20 meters per second. Usually the average speed of a cricket ball when it strikes to a bat, after striking the bat, it is equal to 20 meters per second usually. So if it is having this velocity, then what is the wavelength associated with it? Then what will be the amount of the wavelength? So we have to use the de Broglie's principle or de Broglie's hypothesis. According to that, lambda is equal to h by mv. So just put the values. H is Planck's constant and it has the value of 6.63 multiply 10 power minus 34 joule second. While mass is 0.25 kilograms and velocity is 20 meters per second. So by using the calculator, you can find the wavelength equal to 1.3 multiply 10 power minus 34 meters. So if you analyze this amount, this is 10 power minus 34. It means that 0.000000 so on up to 34 zeros, and after it will be the 1 3. So it is a very small quantity which can be neglected in our ordinary life. Although it is not zero, but it is negligible. So this quantity is very small. This is a very small quantity and can be neglected. So it means that the de Broglie principle doesn't hold in our ordinary life. It has nothing to do with the ordinary life, because we are not going to calculate the different characteristics of this way, because this is having very small value, very small value, which is negligible. But now we have to consider another case. What is that case? If we are considering an electron, a typical electron, it has different data, because cricket ball moves at a very slow speed as compared to an electron. So let's see that what will happen to the electron when it is moving with certain speed and it is having a certain mass. What is going to happen with the electron? So we are going to change the data here. Now we are going to write here the electron. So electronic mass. What is the mass of the electron? So this electron mass, what is the electron mass? The mass of the electron is equal to 9.1 plus 10 power minus 31 kilogram. 9.1 multiply 10 power minus 31 kilogram, which is a very small value of the mass. While the speed of a typical electron is usually 10 power 6 meters per second. 10 power 6 meters per second. This is very high speed as compared to our normal ordinary life. Very high speed means 1 million meters per second. 10 power 6 means 1 million. So 1 million meters per second. This is very high speed as compared to the cricket ball. So, Faiz, you want to ask any question? You may ask, please.
No, sir.
Okay, you have raised hand, that's why. Anyhow, so again we'll be using this formula. Lambda is equal to h by mv, and by putting these values, now two values have been changed, the mass and the velocity, while the Planck's constant will remain the same, because Planck's constant is always a constant. So now mass is 9.1 cross 10 power minus 31 kilogram. While the velocity is 10 power 6 meters per second. When we use these values in our calculator, we get the value of 7.3 multiplied to 10 power minus 10 meters. 7.3 multiplied 10 power minus 10 meters, which is a very large value as compared to, this value is very large as compared to the previously calculated value of the cricket ball. The value of cricket ball was, what is that? That was 1.3 cross 10 power minus 34 meters, which is very small. So you can see here that the mass of an electron, the wavelength of electron is very, very large as compared to the wavelength of the cricket ball. It means that the concept of the de Broglie wavelength is not applicable in our usual life in which we are playing with cricket balls and other things, using the massive things, but it is applicable at the lower level, at the particular level when they are moving at certain high speeds. Then this is an important factor. The de Broglie wavelength becomes an important factor in that situation. And actually, this wavelength, this 7.3, this wavelength is actually usually, this is the distance, the average distance between the atoms in a crystal. This is another amazing fact. This is usually the distance between the atoms of the crystals. You have already studied about the crystalline structures. So this is an amazing fact that the atoms in the crystals are having the same size of the distance between them. So de Broglie wavelength is completely compatible with these calculations. So it has been verified. So we can consider that the de Broglie wavelength is correct. And also this phenomenon is responsible for the diffraction as well as interference in different materials. Therefore, the study of the Broglie wavelength is very important. And understanding of the crystalline structures, because this knowledge can be helpful to understand the crystalline structures of different crystals and other materials as well, for the amorphous materials as well, not only for the crystalline structures, but for the amorphous materials we can calculate different things. Also, we can do calculations and predictions for amorphous materials as well. So the Broglie wavelength is highly important, very much important, because we can calculate the distances between the atoms in crystals without any experimentations. We can directly calculate, but simply with using this the mathematics. So this is highly valuable theory. Okay, so this is the end of the lecture. Time is over. Do you want to ask any question here? Please you may ask. I think that you don't have any question. Okay, thank you very much. And Allah Hafiz.
Allah Hafiz, sir.
Allah Hafiz.